I'm Suzette Munley, most recently a partner at R2L Restaurant and the president of CCPA. So things are certainly looking a little brighter with the rollout of the vaccine, and I know we are all very much looking forward to the time when we can meet in person. In the meantime, we plan to continue with our great programming, so if you have ideas or suggestions for speakers or events, please post them in the chat throughout our program today. We're just going to touch on a few details about the event today. We are recording this and we will share it afterwards. We will mute everyone to maintain audio and visual controls. There is a link in today's program in the chat. And also please use the chat to ask questions, comment, make suggestions, and connect with each other. CCPA is an intimate and diverse group of business owners, executives, and managers looking to build relationships and offer each other meaningful resources. We will continue to bring you unparalleled access to speakers, decision makers, and leaders who are shaping Center City. We will also continue to keep our members and guests informed about business challenges and opportunities in Philadelphia and help them become Center City smart. To touch on our future programming, which will all be virtual, our next Women Changing the City is on June 9th. On April 8th, we have lunch with the city leaders with Taib Smith of Little Giant Creative. Meet the Developers is on April 21st, and you can join us next week for our Business Networking Roundtable. You can find a full schedule of our events on centercityproprietors.org. Thank you to our partners who support all of the work we do. We couldn't do it without you. And now I'd like to welcome Peter Blau, Managing Director and CEO of IT Data, CCPA's Information and Technology Partner.
Thank you, Suzette, and good morning, everyone. And thank you, Ben and Megan, for all that you do. We are honored to support CCPA with all of their technology needs. Mostly, though, we are grateful to be a part of this powerful series as a sponsor and a supporter of Women Changing the City. For the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to learn and grow from the conversations that have taken place through this event and gained a further appreciation for how these amazing women are helping to shape the fabric of our community. IT Day has been involved in social impact causes for over 2 decades, and we are humble enough to know how important this work is. Supporting women leaders, diversity and equity is essential to the society and our growth, and it is all of our responsibility to set a high bar. And it is women like those here on the panel today paving the way. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and enjoy the event.
On behalf of Republic Bank, good morning, and thank you all for joining us. I hope to see everyone soon in person. I think we're getting pretty close. We as a bank are proud to help CCPA present this wonderful series for yet another year and look forward to today's discussion. Republic Bank is one of the largest Philadelphia-based retail banks with over 30 locations located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. In 2020, Republic Bank was named America's #1 bank in service in a national consumer survey commissioned by Forbes. Whether banking in person, online, mobile, or over the phone, Republic Bank delivers an unmatched customer service. I, for one, can't wait for today's discussion about the Center City food and beverage scene. Love the beverage scene, maybe more than the food. No, just kidding. Everyone involved with the CCPA and the city should continue to support the restaurant, pubs, and breweries in any way we can. Whatever that means, get out there, outside, inside, take out, do whatever. With that in mind, this panel the panel is the 2021 kickoff to our popular Women Changing series, and a bit of a departure from previous panels. We are focusing on women who are changing the food industry, starting with their own businesses. The panel is a brainchild of Ellen Yin, founder and co-owner of High Street Hospitality Group, who led our team in creating this panel. She's here this morning to tell us more about it. I'm happy to introduce Ellen Yin.
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy Women's History Month. And it is great to see so many people from our neighborhood, Center City, people who love our city and hopefully where it's going. I cannot believe it's been a year. We were just on the break session talking about what was going on a year ago, and it's hard to believe that no one expected the pandemic to last as long as it was going to. I think we all thought March 16th that this was going to be a month, maybe a month and a half shutdown. We really didn't expect that a year later we would be sitting here and we would still have so many restrictions. Walking through downtown Philadelphia from my home to our restaurants, it's a little bit daunting to see how many businesses have been shut down and impacted by the pandemic. And that is what caused me, when I started talking with Ben about why this panel was so essential. Restaurants have been the most publicized as being impacted by COVID-19, and women in particular are disproportionately impacted by the pandemic because of many things: access to capital, traditionally possibly lower pay than their peers, oftentimes playing the role of caretaker for their children, homeschooling, taking care of their elderly parents, so many responsibilities in addition to running their own businesses. And that's why we have to make sure that women continue to remain in the forefront of entrepreneurship, because if we lose more women women business owners, it will cause a disproportionate amount of disbalance in our equilibrium. I've been so fortunate to have met a number of women who are on the panel today, but in addition, we have a group of women called Let's Talk. Let's Talk is an alliance of about 15 to 20 restaurateurs in the Philadelphia area, started by a woman named Rohini Day, who is part of the national network of about 9 Let's Talk chapters from the West Coast to the East Coast. I met Rohini through the James Beard Foundation Women Leadership Program, and Rohini called me and said, "Would you like to be part of my Chicago Women's Call?" And I always feel like learning from other people is the most inspiring thing. And one of the things that came about was that women were coming together and trying to create camaraderie, create collaborations, and really in this kind of informal network economy, create action and call to action. And that is what has been happening with Let's Talk Philadelphia chapter. We have created multiple programs. We have a website called Philadelphia Women in Food, Sisterly Love Food Fair, which has been in a rotating tour of women vendors that Bridget Foy spearheads. We also just had a Dine Together event that featured 22 women chefs and restaurants, as well as about 385 diners on Monday evening with a panel with Angela Duckworth. And we have much more coming up as well. We have a panel with the Walnut Club, which I know is one of your partners. We are working with Women in Finance, as well as Wharton Women in Business, and just trying to make sure that people know that our story, which restaurants have been devastated by COVID-19, that there is resilience, there is the opportunity for change and for rebuilding, and to make a huge difference in the future of what the food landscape looks like. And I just think that those stories are inspiring to all business people, not just restaurateurs. So on that note, I want to introduce our moderator, Jamila Robinson, who is no stranger to the restaurant industry. Jamila joined the Philadelphia Inquirer almost a little over a year ago, and I feel bad because your year in Philadelphia has been, virtual. But Jamila has now been appointed Assistant Managing Director of the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as focusing on what she was before, food, cocktails, and the restaurant scene. She also is really interested in creating community through food and telling stories about how to do that. Jamila is also chair of the James Beard Foundation Journalism Committee. And I love her comment on the top of her page that says, her grandmother's inspiration: "You're never too old to become what you could have been. If you want to do something, just go out and do it." And that's what we learned from Angela Duckworth on Monday night. Grit is the thing that makes us all entrepreneurs and makes us want to keep going forward. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Jamila so these incredible women can tell their stories. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, Ellen, for that lovely introduction and upfront. I'm so excited to be here, and I want to thank CCPA for the invite to moderate this really important discussion. It's been a very strange year in Philly, but you know, Philly is all about grit, and so I'm thrilled to be on the Zoom with these amazing women for a conversation about change, renewal, diversity, sustainability, impact, and partnerships, and how we all can learn more from each other. So I want to introduce you to the panel. I'm just going to go how it's on my screen because I'm not sure how it's viewing to all of you. But I want to introduce you to Bridget Foy. She's the owner of Bridget Foy's, the East Philly Cafe and Crybaby Pasta. Tess Hart, who is the co-founder and CEO of Triple Bottom Brewing. Check them out. Dr. Michelle Nelson, who is the founder of the Mama Tea Community Fridge Project, and Jezebel Carriega, who's the owner of Jezebel's, but she's also not only a cook, but she's also a furniture designer and maker. So welcome to the panel, everyone. It's so weird because, you know, usually you get some applause or, you know, so it's always strange to moderate a conversation over Zoom. So to everyone in the audience, bear with us. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will follow up with a Q&A. So we'll just go ahead and hop in. So to the panel, you know, to Ellen's point, about this being a year of renewal, you know, pivoting, all of these changes that we've had to adjust to in the restaurant industry. I would love to hear from each of you about the past year that you've experienced. Ellen talked about storytelling, so I would love to hear just a quick personal story from each of you about either the challenges you've had or the triumphs over the last year, so that everyone can kind of learn from each other. And just on my screen, let's start with Tess.
Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to be here with all of you. It's great to be on this panel with these women who I admire so much. So thank you very much for having me. We opened Triple Bottom Brewing Company in September of 2019. So we had a really beautiful 6 months of operating the business that we intended to operate, which was entirely based on making beers and selling them in the tap room in a pint glass. We didn't have anything in cans. And so the shutdown has required us to change absolutely everything about what we do in ways that are both, I think, very sad and also very exciting. And I think one of the most sort of powerful experiences that I've had as a result of this year is at Triple Bottom, we're all about partnerships. That's always been part of who we are. We're a fair chance business, so we meet a lot of our team members through nonprofit partners who help us then support folks as they're returning to the workforce. We do a lot of community partnerships, and I think partnerships are the thing that have really gotten us through this year, and Ellen alluded to that a lot in her intro. We started something called the Joy Box, which we founded with 5 other businesses, all sort of small local producers with a sustainable focus and dedicated to living wage jobs. And we got together the day after the shutdown at the brewery, sort of with our heads in our hands, like, what are we gonna do? And we built a website overnight and launched this sort of shared delivery service, a way to stay connected to our community and keep getting our products to people. And we expected maybe 30 orders, and we got 150 in less than 24 hours. And it was this moment of just Philadelphia rising up and supporting us. And it was so incredible. And also we were so bad at doing it. And we were driving around for 12 hours making these deliveries in soggy bags. So we've gotten a lot better since then. We're coming up on our 1-year birthday, which is a bittersweet milestone. But I think that that scrappiness and then that turning to each other and figuring out how we can all lift each other up has been something that's really defined this year for me.
That's lovely. Let's hear from Jezebel.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jamila. I think for me, I opened Jezebel's in 2010. So, and in 2018, in 2017, I started expanding my business. In 2018, I had to move my business suddenly to West Philadelphia. You might know me from maybe being near Amphitheater Square or near Braden House. That's where I started. So, I went through a little bit of like this setback at the end of 2018, 2019. So 2019 was a hard year for us, and we were just trying to keep our head above water, and the pandemic happened. So, we were already looking for ways to stay engaged with our old neighborhood, and then also how do we keep growing? And on that base, we had an e-commerce site. And, we picked back up ideas that we had back then before the move in 2018. So we started shipping alfajores across the country. I just started taking online orders, putting them on my car and delivering them. And like Tess said, like driving for hours, trying to make sure that everybody gets their food. Also, one highlight, my dad arrived in the country on March 13th, right before everything happened. He was coming to visit me and for 2 weeks and ended up being 4 months. So I love my dad, I always did. And this was just an amazing experience because he's like, I'm here to help you. So I'm gonna wash your dishes, I'm going to roll the dough, and that's it. So, I think I had his companionship during the first 4 months. And it was funny because when he left at the end of June, I was like, oh, we're in the middle of the pandemic. Who are not hugging people. I got to hug my dad every single day. He made my coffee. He came to work with me every single day. He will refuse to stay at the house. So that companionship and then just having someone next to me who truly understood what I was going through, it was essential.
Yeah.
So I feel like I got to, I feel like I got to pandemic life and like, restrictions, or you cannot see people and all of those things in July. So I came a little bit late because I always had that home core of like, I have someone that I love with me, I cannot still have. So, that's my highlight.
So you had a lot of support, throughout those, throughout the pandemic. I'd love to hear from Dr. Michelle Nelson about, support and your story of resilience or triumph over the last year.
Thank you, Jamila. I am so happy to be a part of this panel. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. So I view the pandemic as an opportunity to kind of reorganize what I was going to do next. I saw a lot of suffering times 10, and I was at a place where I felt, how can I be help and of service to my community? And I always wanted to engage in a socially responsible mission, and I didn't know what that was going to be like. And the pandemic brought that mission to my doorstep. And the Mama T Community Fridge Project was born out of those circumstances. In terms of support and hardship, our neighbors have food hardships. It's all around us, and it's even more exasperated by the pandemic, unfortunately. So with the Mama T Community Fridge Project, I've gotten a lot of support. My team, our volunteers have gotten a lot of support from the restaurant industry. And actually Tess has, from Triple Bottom Brewing, she has one of our yellow refrigerators at her location. We have now 17 of these all over the city, feeding Philadelphians with fresh fruits and vegetables. 17. And so that's what the pandemic did. It ignited this movement. We are now creating a pop-up grocery store, which we'll get into. But just to stay on task, Jamila, I guess my struggle was, can I really do this? Is this really going to work, especially in lieu of what's happening? And the answer is a resounding yes. And it's because the city came 100% and helped us, and they still continue to do so. Thank you.
I love that story. Let's turn to Bridget Foy for a story of resilience.
Well, I'm so impressed with Michelle. Your work is amazing, and mine just feels silly next to yours, but here we go. When this whole thing started, of course, we were all, this is a situation that was out of our control. And I think as business owners, we like to have control and know what's going to happen. And we're all kind of thrown into the unknown, like, how long is this going to last? What do we do from here, and how can we keep our employees? I think that was a big thing as a business owner. How can we keep our employees? Are they going to be taken care of? Is unemployment going to kick in? We've got health insurance to pay for people. So how can we, what are some things we can do to control the situation? I knew in our example, I knew we had a product that people wanted. People were having a hard time getting food. We immediately started to just bring in a skeleton crew and offer a small amount of takeout service, to, pivoting into doing pasta kits. And, I think really we all just were trying to figure out how we can, what can we do to continue on our operation? So small things like that.
Those are all great stories. I mean, here's what we've heard. We've heard about innovation. We've heard about service, support, power. All of those things are extraordinarily important. At the Philadelphia Inquirer, in a lot of our reporting, we're starting to write a lot of stories about sort of this change that's happening. People are getting vaccines, as Ellen mentioned, and there's all of this other kinds of support that is probably coming from the legislature and Congress. I would love to hear from each of you about what are there's all of these things that are being championed. What kinds of support do you need for the restaurant industry to be healthy? Let's start with Jezebel.
Sorry, I was muted. I think the main thing is to have support from our city officials, to have legislation that can help the restaurant industry survive. I think that's the one thing that we definitely have to rally and, work with them. I think they truly understood how essential we are to the city, to the success of the city. So we just need to keep getting involved with them.
What else want to chime in? What other kinds of support that other folks feel like you need from your leaders?
I would say awareness. I'll piggyback on what Jezebel just said. I think awareness is also key. Highlighting different women businesses and what they're doing, whether it's in the restaurant business or anything to do with food. Particularly, I know that we've been able to grow a lot with our partnership with Whole Foods. We have 2 amazing posters inside both Whole Foods locations at Center City and the South Street location. And just from that, we've been able to attract new followers, friends, community members that just didn't know about our project. So I would say any type of promotion, marketing, highlighting, it goes a long way when again, city officials, I think Jezebel said that, and all the press, just shine a light on what's happening.
It sounds like, we have to help you with that across the media of raising that awareness, not only about, when your hours are, and, the, new beers that you might have coming up, but also the awareness around the partnerships that you meet from the community and the other kinds of support. We've heard a lot from, say Philly restaurants and other organizations like that about, the support that people need as these essential workers, to Jezebel's point. But for, to the panel, there are these signs of comeback. Because of course, we see every time there's a small lift in restrictions that restaurants are the first thing that people want to go back to, outdoor dining throughout the summer and into, as long as people had tables, people were going to restaurants. How can we ensure that we are supporting the people who work in hospitality? Your employees and other folks throughout the industry. I'll start with Bridget.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things about the restaurant industry is it's a little bit broken, and that's kind of been evident, and it's something that, maybe this was the time to change it, but I don't think anyone has the pocketbook to do it right now. Just the kind of inequality between tip workers and non-tip workers is a big point of discussion. And, it could have been a time that we could have had a time where we rallied the change for it because we were at a stopping point and we're kind of restarting. But at this point, it seems like we're just kind of continuing on it as the way things were back to the old ways. But I think that definitely is, the tipping system and the inequality between front of the house and back of the house labor is a big issue. Oh. And unfortunately, as everyone would like to see it change, how do we get there?
Can you expand on that a little bit and kind of talk about, I'm sure everybody in the room is aware of the inequality, but I think sometimes it's really important for us to actually outline what that looks like, for your tip workers and non-tip workers, front of the house and the back of the house, the folks who are bussers and dishwashers and people who are doing those kinds of roles that are not as visible.
Of course. Yeah, so, we have, like say we have a dishwasher and he makes, we would start them at $13 an hour. And then I have a server come in and we pay them $2.83 an hour plus tips. So this guy, a server comes in, the dishwasher gets there first thing in the morning, he's helping clean, he's helping break down boxes, he's doing a lot of the, the backbone of the operation. And then a server comes in and they work, 5 hours and they make all this cash right up front because they're getting, tips from people. And, people have tried to expand it so that, the tip pool is merged between the front and the back of the house. And it's just, it's been, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain if you're not in the restaurant industry, but it is, it's hard to see, and then you want to change it, but how can you change it? It's
Jezebel, I see your light is off. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was just answering a comment someone asked about if does DoorDash caviar help or hurt. I think from what Bridget is mentioning, also what Michelle said as well about awareness, I think this is a conversation we need to have now. If we don't change it now, when? Are we going to wait for another pandemic? I think, the inequalities that Bridget mentioned about the structure of pay in my business, we have everybody, whether you're front of the house or back of the house, they start at a certain salary and then at a certain hourly rate, and then everybody gets tipped. No matter what you do, whether you're a dishwasher, baker, front of the house person, that's just the way that we do it here. And I think having that conversation with everybody else, also one big data that I'm gonna throw here, the US spend 7 to 8% of their salary in food. In Europe, the average amount of the salary that is spent in food is 20%. I think expecting food for cheap is we get it cheap now. We're gonna pay for it down the line. We're gonna pay for it with environmental issues. We're gonna pay with not like the situation that we just went through right now, that people is on unemployment, that, if you are a dishwasher, you're not getting the same money as a server. So these are conversations, and I think this is a place to actually have the conversation with people who is involved in Center City, how can you help us also create awareness? Because at the end of the day is understand, we might get inexpensive food now, but we're gonna pay one way or the other.
Absolutely. Tess, please chime in.
Yeah, I love this conversation so much. And I think that when we're talking about what support we need and the awareness, I think our customers have to be partners with us, because it is, so like Bridget mentioned, tipped minimum wage is $2.83 an hour, which to me is, it's really low, because you don't know, especially during the pandemic, you don't know how many people are going to be coming out and tipping. And I think that on one end, that feels like a really uncertain and unstable way to earn a living if you're relying on that base wage plus tips. But also then, that there's also a big upside to that sometimes, and that creates this big disparity. And I think that part of the answer is just changing expectations from customers that, the people serving you deserve to earn a dignified wage, and that it's really hard. We guarantee $15 an hour at Triple Bottom, and that comes out of our bottom line, which, is terrible right now anyway, so it's fine. But I think we're competing against other places that aren't doing that, and we're trying to match prices, and that's really tough. And I think that customers should start thinking about where their money is going and how it's being shared among the people who are creating this amazing experience that we all crave so much. And so that's something that, I think needs to be a broader conversation among everyone, is what do we expect and what are we willing to pay for it?
These are really important conversations. And you said something, Tess, that I think that is so important, is about how communities can be partners. And understanding, so we some themes are coming together here. We're talking about support, we're talking about inclusion, we're talking about awareness, what food costs, and setting the expectation of dignity for workers, no matter what their job is. At the Inquirer, we're going through a similar kind of understanding of, and I hate the word reckoning. We say that all the time. We are auditing our content, and we are thinking about how we can be a better in service as a better institution to help people of color, to make sure we're covering them properly. I want to ask the panel, about your thoughts about diversity, equity, inclusion in the restaurant industry, and how you're making diversity as a priority. I see Tessa's light is on, so I'll start there.
I think we are sort of founded on thinking about this, and definitely not founded on solving it, because we are just trying different things. But I want to live in a world where diversity and equity is celebrated, where everyone has the opportunity to craft something great. That sounds like a wonderful world to live in. And I think to get there, we all have to play a role in it. And I think that restaurants, breweries are such pivotal actors in this, because we are inherently places where communities go for connection. And so we can really be models of how to elevate and celebrate diversity and equity. And so for us at Triple Bottom, that starts really with who our team is and how we meet them. So we create jobs for people who are overcoming homelessness and incarceration, and do it in partnership with some really wonderful nonprofits, Project Home and Mural Arts and the Youth Sentencing and Reentry Program. And so part of it is who we get to come in the door on our team, and then what those jobs are like I mentioned, in terms of, are they earning a living wage? Do they have learning opportunities? We do internal internships so people can learn new skills. And then I think that starts to make a lot of different people feel comfortable in this space. And brewing is like a white man's world. And, you know, it is daunting a lot of the time. And I think we've been really intentional about creating a space that hopefully feels welcoming to everyone. And that starts with who's serving you. If you can see yourself in the people working there, then I think you're going to feel more comfortable. And then with more different people in the room, we can create all sorts of conversations that might not happen otherwise. So I think that restaurants are such a great place to really think about this and act on this in lots of creative ways.
I think that's wonderful. I see you leaning forward, Michelle.
Yes, this is a great question, Jamila, and I think Tessa's spot on with her comments about just it's an everybody community working together, you know, from top to bottom, and I like to call it horizontal, that top to bottom. I have issues with that. Solidarity, not charity. And from where we sit, you can't have diversity without inclusion. The two are one and the same. People do need to see themselves in your business. They need to feel like they are a part of it. We, on purpose, we make purposeful movements with the Mama Tea Community Fridge Project, whereby we want to combat food insecurity in a way that is sometimes uncomfortable. We go into different neighborhoods and different populations. We launched a fridge in Chinatown where folks thought, oh, that's not going to happen. Are you sure? And we did it anyway. We have 4 of our fridges in senior citizen facilities. There's low-income seniors in Fairhill, low-income seniors in Nicetown, low-income seniors in West Philly. We have fridges there as well. So you need to be intentional with your movements. Move with intention, put yourself in someone else's shoes for a moment, and you'll see wonderful things happen. We got to get this equity thing down pat before equality can even reign supreme. If you don't have an apple, you never had an apple, then you don't know what it's like to have an apple. It's as simple as that. So definitely it's a we job.
That's so powerful. You know, I would love to stay on this, you know, for a second, because what you're really talking about is social responsibility. And the role that plays, you know, not only in the restaurant industry, you know, talking about food insecurity, which, you know, some people would prefer to call food apartheid, because of how it impacts our neighbors. Can you talk a little bit about, the role that social responsibility or social justice plays, and how that has long-term impact?
Well, social responsibility is for all of us, whether you're in the food industry or you are, in the car industry. There are a lot of companies right now that understand that when you come into a neighborhood and you set up shop, you need to work with the neighborhood, because the neighborhood can tell if you are wanting to forge ahead and not include them. And they should be included, especially people that have lived in neighborhoods for a very long period of time. They have lives, they have cousins, they have friends that get displaced for a lot of different reasons. And their stories matter. All of our stories matter. So I'm an advocate for social responsibility. I appreciate the restaurant industry, like I mentioned before, because we have at least five of our community fridges hosted by restaurants. And I'm a restaurant advocate. I love restaurants. I definitely am a very big tipper. So I want to travel to everybody's restaurant on the panel. And we can work together in that example of social responsibility, because it's necessary right now. It really takes a village and then some. And I'm glad to see that everybody's doing their part, and how one person helps doesn't have to be the same way that you help. Maybe someone's providing electricity for a community fridge. Someone else is putting produce in the fridge. Someone else is donating money. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just be involved.
And then Tess, you've collaborated with Michelle and other folks. Are there other folks on the panel who want to talk about like that, the collaborations that are needed, like the support within industries, because you all kind of rely on each other, with brewing, with supply chain at Bridget Foy's and at Jezebel's.
So I can say that I think supporting, different projects is, I think for me, tying social responsibility and how, we need to interact with each other. I want to believe that we at Jezebel's here in 45th and Walnut, we're this little bit of like a hub for people to, work with other businesses. I mean, we work with Tess and, we come up with a pizza and beer night. So there is a way we figure out a way to work that together, but we're also a pickup location for Project Tamal. I think, how do we become that community hub that you're not just here to make money, you're also here to support other projects that are, helping the undocumented community of Philadelphia, or are supporting businesses like Triple Bottom Brewing, who had a social mission and who are so driven on their purpose. So I think there are many ways to do it. And, I want to kind of keep pushing for us being the hub and support for many restaurants to come to West Philly.
Fantastic. I want to be mindful of the time because there are a lot of questions that are emerging in the chat, and I want to be able to make sure that we have time for that. But I, just as a final question, before we turn to the audience, I would love to hear from each of you, just like, what's your best lesson for change? Or what do you want other people to know about change? I'll start with Bridget.
I think a lot of times we just have these crazy ideas and you're like, well, it's only crazy until you make it happen. So a lot of times we just dream of these things and we're like, okay, now let's do it. So I think just taking action on, your dreams and inspiration, and it's going to, all fall into place. Hopefully, we've had great success with, with our business and relaunching during the pandemic. Our business, Bridget Foy's, had suffered a devastating fire and we were down for 3 years. We've been closed. And so to reopen in the midst of a pandemic has been just like, a crazy effort. And the community has really rallied behind us. Our neighbors are out. People are, doing all the things we want them to do. They're ordering takeout, they're coming in, and they're supporting us. And it just feels really good to see something that you work so hard on, come to life and pull it all together. So, yeah.
That's great. Tess, I see you leaning forward.
I'm just leaning into Bridget because it's been amazing to watch her reopen Bridget Foy's and also at the same time launch the Sisterly Love Food Fair that so many of us have been a part of. So it's like such an incredible story. I think for us, I agree with everything Bridget said about jumping into it. And then I also think you have to pace yourself and take time to reflect and learn. And it's like finding those moments of like jumping and racing and then like reflecting and learning. And, we're in this point right now where things are starting to reopen and we're trying to figure out what that means for us and our timeline at Triple Bottom. We've just been doing pickup and delivery for the last few months. And we're trying to sort of not just react to the new announcement from the city, but to like define our own timelines so that we can have longer conversations and retrain the team and talk about this sort of compensation question about tipping and service fees and all of that stuff. So we're trying to like control our time a little bit instead of just being completely reactive. And that allows us to sort of set different goals and pace ourselves a little bit to hopefully build something that, will help our team members and be even better for them than it was before the pandemic. But then there's also the moments where you just have to chase an opportunity because it's right in front of you. So learning to recognize when to take the time and when to just run.
That's great. Jezebel?
I'm gonna go a little bold here. I think that for me, it is to, if I have to say someone, what do you do for change? Is like, get to know yourself. What do you really want? What do you really like? Never stop learning and just go for it. Trust your gut. I do believe like each one of us knows what we want, what we value, and the answers are within ourselves. So I think pushing yourself that way is gonna help to make change and to be sustainable. And the one thing that I read on a book is like, make 2 degrees changes, which is when you are, I think it's Susan David who says this, when you are at sea and you need to change your direction, you never make a 90 degrees change, you make 2 degrees, because the 2 degrees is sustainable. And even though 2 degrees is here, but in the long run, it's gonna be here. So small changes.
That's brilliant. And Michelle?
Gosh, I love that. I love that. That's amazing.
Susan David, Emotional Agility. That's the book.
We'll put that in the chat.
You know, your life doesn't happen, your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change. You know, it just, you know, I'm all about intention. I'm about making purposeful movements, even if the movements to others seem crazy and they don't get it. You know, again, I think Bridget mentioned this, it's only crazy until it's done, until it's actually accomplished, and then it's not so crazy. So move with intention. And then the trust your gut was mentioned earlier. Definitely do that. And just you inspire others when you trust your gut and you move in intention. You're not inspirational if you're not going for it. So to all of us, let's just go for it.
I'm just going to applaud here because that's so inspiring. Taking action, relaunch, rally, define your own timeline, ask more questions, chase after things, know yourself, never stop learning, trust your gut, be sustainable, get better by change and intention. Those are, I think, no matter what industry you're in, make the 2 degrees of change. I think that's brilliant. I will be reading that. Let's turn to the audience. Let's see. I'm going to try to go up to the top. I'm going to apologize to everyone because I haven't been able to track all the questions here, but Michael, and please forgive me, I'm going to try to say your name. Shakowski says the panel mentioned pivoting in doing or creating financial streams to enhance business. What financial opportunities has the city provided to keep your businesses in Philly? And what's the one goal you'd like to obtain before end of 2021? Please, Michelle.
So we have been able to attain a couple of grants, which is great. And we'd like to be able to acquire a few more just from an operational cost perspective. So that's something that I'll say the city has asked us on a few occasions what it is that we would like, what do we need. And again, that kind of piggybacks on what I mentioned about awareness. When they know that you exist, then they're able to better help when they know that you're here and you're present. So I'll say that we've been able to acquire that and still looking to do more, especially with our new project, the Mama T pop-up grocery store. We're building a grocery store at 1703 Montrose. This grocery store is going to be mobile. It looks like a tiny house. All the neighbors think it's a tiny house. They're expecting HGTV to jump out with the cameras. And I'm like, it's not a tiny house, but it does look like a tiny house. And we've received support from PHA, Philadelphia Housing Authority, and also the Carpenters Union, the same Carpenters Union that built portions of I-95 and built the Philadelphia skyline. So if they can be helping and building on our behalf, then everyone else should be able to receive some help too. But that happened mainly because of awareness. They knew that our project was happening and they came together to help us with that. So feel free to come and visit and see us at 1703 Montrose and say hello.
There are a couple questions about how people can get a fridge in their neighborhoods.
If you can email hello@mama-t.com, one of our admin folks will respond.
Great. Lots of questions about tipping. Tipping, I have my feelings. I won't share those with you about tipping. A couple of questions about, folks are talking about the European model where you add a service charge to the bill, or other kinds of strategies that that folks are using, but Ellen Yin chimes in here in the chat about some people think it's optional, what happens when one restaurant adds a gratuity and another restaurant doesn't? Can some of you talk about approaches to some of your thoughts about how to manage this, or what you're hoping for to come out of tipping?
So what I'm gonna say is, I think the awareness component is super important, but I think as businesses, we need to come together and have that conversation, because otherwise you're talking about, we are all competitors, but we can all come together and raise the bar. And I think that's gonna be like the biggest move we could make. And then, whether if we make it a legislation into the city of Philadelphia, if you own a restaurant. So this is when like city officials, other restaurant owners come together and say, this is the support we need. This is what we decided to do. From now on is going to be a service charge. Whether one or two restaurants do it and then they become a little more expensive on like people's mind, it's not helping you. It actually might hurt you. So I think there are so many components to it, but the beginning is awareness and education on why it matters to make this change.
We learned that folks love Bridget Boys, and we're so happy that you're back up and running. I think there was a couple first dates there. That's very exciting.
So many first dates. So many people met their spouses there. So many people have come in to just like, we met each other at the bar here. I bumped into my spouse, like going to your crazy restroom up on the second floor with our wonky old staircase. So a lot of history there, a lot of romantic connections. So, if you're single, come on in, you might meet your spouse there. Yeah.
But it also speaks to how important restaurants are to communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think our restaurant always catered to the neighborhood. Although we're on South Street, situated between Queen Village, Bella Vista, Old City, we were sort of like a connector there. And we had so many regulars. When we first had our fire, the neighborhood just rallied, like, of course you're reopening. And we're like, we can't even wrap our head around what actually just happened to us. But yeah, like, of course we're going to do it, and we're going to make it, better than it was. So we always just like try to connect people, although it's been difficult now with, having guests in the space. I think people are just really excited to get back to some sort of sense of normalcy. We can't have people at the bar, but we put high tops like next to the bar with our plexiglass and our 6 feet distance. So, I think in the notes it mentioned the thaw that's happening, and I definitely can attest that the thaw is happening. People are coming out. You know, the TLA on South Street is vaccinating, you know, 300 people a day. We're constantly seeing people come in with their stickers. The warmer weather is happening. You know, I'm just really, really excited that I think you can see it in the distance, like it's coming. You know, even with that sneak peek, like last night we were open at Crybaby with outdoor dining. I mean, it just, you could feel the energy. People just are dying to get out to eat and drink. Our bartenders are like, I've never made so many cocktails. Their arms are tired from shaking the shakers. So we're all
That's awesome.
we're excited.
Excited too. I think that might be a really good place to leave it. We are excited, optimistic. I am looking forward to the time where I can see all of you in person. So please, you know, everyone have a drink, pick up a beer, head to see, all of our folks here at Jezebel's, Bridget Foy from Crybaby Pasta, Dr. Michelle Nelson, Mama T's Community Fridge Project, and Tess Hart, the CEO of Triple Bottom Brewing. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you and to hear your stories of resilience. I think and hoping that everyone can support the restaurant industry. When you support restaurants, you support communities. So thank you all for being here.